Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper.io. Today we have Kirby. Kirby is the founding general partner of Ascend.vc, and he's also on the board of directors of Beanbox, Keep, and prior to that, Kirby had four startups. Most of them got acquired. The last one was Dwellable. It got acquired by HomeAway. Kirby, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Mustafa. I appreciate you having me, and I'm excited to talk with you. Nothing I like better than talking about startups. It's all I do every day, and I've chosen to spend my first part of my career building them, and now the second part investing in startups. So yeah, always excited to chat.
So I believe four of your companies got acquired that you founded, right?
Yeah. I basically.
So secret sauce. What do you eat?
What
time you wake up and
well,
what's the secret sauce?
It was a combination of being born at the right time. So basically, I got out of college in 1996, which may prove historically to be the best single year to get out of college in the history of the world. And I had done some copywriting work for a friend's older brother the summer before, and he called me and said, "Hey, why don't you come work for my startup?" And I was like, "What's a startup?" He's like, we have an internet company. I said, "What's the internet?" I'm almost being serious, because in 1996, internet as a commercial, entity really was just taking off. And so I got in at the ground floor. We were one of the first websites to sell digital advertising. And we ended up taking it public in 1997. And at one point, the company's worth $4 billion. Left in 2000. The same team got back together in 2003, started another startup, took it public in 2004. And then from there, I did two venture-backed startups, both of which were acquired by public acquisition. And look, the short answer to that is really good fortune. And I picked the right teams and the right times and the right markets to get involved in.
But you still haven't told us what you eat for breakfast. Come on. That's the secret sauce.
I don't eat breakfast. That's my secret sauce. It's 2 cups of coffee and straight to Zoom.
So founders, if you want to do an exitable startup, stop having breakfast, right? So coming down to, unfortunate times because of COVID, and the whole world is going through a new learning curve and everything, right? And we're hearing that multiple VCs are rethinking their investment thesis, and the discussion is going on that even the VCs have told the early stage, especially the Series A companies, to increase their runways to 24 months or even 36 months in that matter, right? Because not all spaces are going to pick up the pivot. So what are your thoughts on that? Are you rethinking your investment thesis, which industries and everything to pick on, or how do you see, will the world go back to normal?
Yeah, wow, that's a mouthful. It's a lot of questions. And if I had all the answers, I'd be running for office, I guess. But I think it's pretty straightforward. Any venture capital firm at this point has looked at their portfolio, and they've got 3 buckets. There's a bucket of companies that's largely affected, and most super early stage companies are probably in that bucket, because they're going to need to spend money and hire people to find product market fit, regardless of what the broader economy looks like. So, if you're pre-seed and you raised $1 million, or you're seed and you raised $2 million, like arguably things really haven't changed that much for you, in terms of your operating plan. Like, it may be tougher to find success, but you still have to go chase it. So that's 1/3 of the companies. Another third of the companies are uniquely advantaged. So we've got investments in some direct-to-consumer companies that are going through the roof right now, because the big brands have pulled their ad dollars out of Facebook and similar channels. And so our CPAs have gotten cut in half. And so we're starting to now all of a sudden be profitable in the shopping cart on some of these deals. And so e-commerce and specifically staples are just going nuts. And I think that shift, we waited 20 years for the first 20% shift from offline to online retail, and sort of 20 days for the next 20% shift, and now it's 40%, and so it's a great time to be in the e-commerce space. And then to similarly things around remote transactions and remote work. So we have a company that does machine learning, computer vision for physical ID verification, which is people need to register for things online more and more, and the bar is higher for know your customer. Stuff like that is definitely growth. So there's a third of companies in anyone's portfolio who's done a decent job of diversification that fit that bill. And then the last third is the companies that are really, really going to be impacted. And these are typically later stage companies where it's harder to turn the ship. And they're the ones where you have to look at the macro economy and just say, yeah, the pain is not here now. The real pain's coming 9 to 12 to 18 months down the line. If I have 1,000 employees and I'm trying to grow quarter over quarter into my Series D, I've got to make some really hard decisions right now. And I think that's, we've seen that with a little bit of late stage stuff in the portfolio, but my exposure as a micro fund focused on pre-seed is pretty limited to that level of carnage. But it's certainly out there, and sadly, it's probably certainly more of it coming.
Interesting. So, founders' DNA is something which I really like to talk about and discuss with other individuals. A couple of years back, especially in the 2016-17, the hype was there that one coast is better than the other. But in the last 3 years, we've seen all of that myth busting happening. So when it comes down to founders' DNA, do you think all of these great founders, they have some kind of commonality irrespective of the coast, or one coast is better than the other?
Oh wow! I mean, look, if you just look at the numbers, increasingly there are billion-dollar outcomes coming out of New York, coming out of LA, coming out of Seattle certainly, and so I don't know about coasts, but I think the distribution of talent outside of the Bay Area is growing. In terms of the DNA, being a pre-seed investor, typically what I'm betting on is the founder. What are the characteristics that the common thread that kind of runs across the founders that I've seen become successful? It varies. I think you have to be able to look at them and believe. I would say, can I see this person telling the story about the vision of this company 10 years from now in front of 5,000 people at a keynote, and telling it retroactively because what they predicted would happen, did happen. Because you have to believe that someone has that level of conviction in order for them to raise the rest of their pre-seed round, let alone to hire, the outstanding team that they're going to need to be able to hire when they can't afford to hire them. Right? They're going to need to be able to do things that nobody should be able to do. So being able, and all of that falls back on sort of charisma, narrative, leadership, and dedication, which all goes to that 10 years out question of, are they going to be there in 10 years? Are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why are they tackling this startup? Do they have a personal passion around it? Are they just tankers? Do they stumble on like a secret insight that no one else has? Curiosity, charisma, grit, and intelligence, I think, are probably the hallmarks of a great founder DNA.
Nice. Last question, Kirby. Remote work. It's been on the rise for the last 2 years, and then on the side we saw the co-workings rise up. Then since last September, the WeWork debacle and everything started unfolding, right? So how do you see the post-COVID world in regards to remote work, and how do you see these co-workings shaping up?
So I think there's a vocal minority of people on Twitter who tend to not have children, who seem to believe that remote work will usurp in-person work completely. I don't see that. I think there's a huge silent majority of folks who cannot wait to get back to an office. I think humans are built to be around each other and to interact physically. I think, furthermore, that anyone who's worked for a company with its corporate headquarters in a city that they're not working in other words, who's worked in a remote office, let alone a remote home, can attest to the difficulty in achieving, you know, career advancement and bureaucratic political strategy advancement at any company of any meaningful size if you're not located at the HQ. Now, you know, I guess that's all kind of contrarian of me to say, but for individual contributors, yeah, I think there's going to be a huge spike in remote work. For software engineers, absolutely a spike in remote work. But for managers and corporate talent, you know, I don't know. I'm not shutting down commercial real estate just yet. And for what it's worth, you know, we have some insight into the commercial real estate market in Seattle, and there will be buying opportunities, but nobody's pulling the plug right now. So maybe, you know, I guess I'm on the record, and we can come back and look at it or listen to it. You know,
that's the best thing about having those podcasts. You know, you can go like, hey, I recorded one on 16th of June, and this is what I said. But yes, Kirby, thank you so much for being on the show. Take care of yourself. We could have at least talked for an hour, but my team tells me I have to keep it within.
No, it's great. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you.